symptoms. Now, the KwaZulu Natal government says that it will be stricter in enforcing nationwide lockdown measures. So far, 2 people have died from COVID-19 in the province, both in their 40s. KwaZulu Natal Premier Sihle Zikalala joins us on the line now. Premier, thanks so much for your time and welcome to Morning Live.
Thanks a lot for having us, Leanne. Thanks for having us, and thanks to your listeners.
Premier, before we discuss the broader COVID-19 lockdown, can we just get some update on that story from yesterday? And it, of course, broke the night before, where of this building that was supposedly open for business. And that is one of the questions that arises here as well. Was that building open for business? And if so, why? And if you can just give us an update on the developments from yesterday.
Well, we got an information that this building was opened and people were working, but some were working from inside, seemingly not allowed to go out. And that's why we then thought it would be important to conduct a search and try to establish what was happening. But what was further reported was that these people, some of the people seemingly are showing signs of a serious flu, such as COVID-19. And therefore, we send the police and people from the medical healthcare centers to conduct a search, but those also to ensure that they conduct a thorough check-up of these people.
So with regard to the number of people that you found there and, of course, the intelligence that led to that raid, were all of that information that you received, was it actually borne out in what you found in the building?
Yes, it's accurate and it's linking. And we'll want to thank people for their time and the effort to assist us, because we cannot be all over. But they managed to tip us, and that's why we managed to get in. And the information was correlated as presented to us.
So, MEC, one of the concerns that that intelligence gave was that the people in the building, number one, seem to have been living there. Number two, it would seem that a number of them presented with flu-like symptoms, which we know is also common to some of the symptoms for COVID-19. Were you able to establish that, or did you do any screening, and what was the result of that particular effort?
Well, the screening took place. We are yet to get the full results because some of the people have to go through thorough test. But it is true that some were having symptoms that are associated with coronavirus. But we have then said, let them be checked so that we get a confirmation. So we are at that stage. And it is true that some of the people were staying inside that area without a proper and conducive environment for people to stay. The health conditions are not allowing people to stay there, and that's why we have said, let's take these actions, including arresting people who are in charge for that area.
So how many people were arrested, MEC?
Well, the number of people arrested right now is close to 150, but some of them, of course, you would say are not yet charged because with some were just staying there, and we need to ensure that we arrest those who are responsible for locking the people there.
And Premier, there was also a suggestion that this particular building, which is commonly known as China Mall, was operational during this national lockdown. Is that accurate? Were you able to ascertain that?
It is, and that's why we are locking it down, and we will enforce the lockdown and ensure that nobody operates in the building. Though some parts of the what is called mall were closed, but generally the area was operating, and we are going to be locking it down. In fact, we locked it down since then.
Let's just move on to the broader lockdown in the province, MEC, rather Premier. It takes a while to get used to these things. So Premier, firstly, how many people have been tested in KZN thus far?
Well, we are now trying to roll out the testing process that will ensure that we test communities in targeted areas. For now, we have been focusing on testing people based on being contact. But now we will be then targeting specific areas where we believe there are hotspots, and we will conduct a test in those areas. I must say this is very prevalent in the eThekwini areas. The areas that are affected for now, it's eThekwini, it is Pietermaritzburg, a bit of Newcastle and Potchefstroom, and then your Mukhanyakude areas. So if you analyze, you would see that these are areas that are either economic hubs or areas that are dominated by the tourism industry.
And that's one of the things with KZN, because you have both large urban and rural populations. And there was, of course, an announcement made by the president about greater testing, and that people would be sent out to test people in their homes. And KZN, as one of the epicenters, along with Gauteng and the Western Cape, would have these testers sent out. So how is it going to work for your particular province? Do you know where exactly the focus for the testing and screening will be, Premier?
Yes, the focus will be in areas we would identify as hotspots, and those areas are areas where individuals who have been tested positive are living or have been operating or visited in the recent period. Then we will ensure that all people who are around those areas are tested, because the spread goes from one person to the other. And once a person commutes in a taxi or somewhere, or in a taxi or in a car, that person can then spread the virus to other people. And that's why we will focus in these areas I've mentioned, where we have identified people who have tested positive, and then we will test contacts, and then test the community around those areas. Once, I think the program will be starting from today. We are finalizing logistical preparations, and then we will roll it out.
So, of course, people concerned for their safety, given the fact that we usually have criminal elements that look for any sort of loophole to pounce on unsuspecting victims. How will you communicate this particular message to the people of your province once you are ready to start testing?
Once we are ready to start in a particular area, we will communicate through our local structures. We've got councillors, but we've got war rooms which are operating under the Operation Sukumasake. And we will use that as the communication channel to ensure that all our people are well informed, but two, to ensure that no criminals take advantage of this, because it is possible that criminals will go around presenting themselves as people who are assisting, yet they would want to do criminal activity. So we will ensure that from our provincial command team, we take the message to the district command teams, and then we go straight to ward level through our war rooms of Operation Sukumasake. People who are in Sukumasake, they are well known. They are councillors, they are leaders of communities in that particular ward, such as religious leaders and those who are in various community organs.
Now, Premier, just moving to the issue of the MSC cruises, and we believe that authorities at this point are now seeking 6,000 people who went on cruises in the past 2 months. How is that search going, if you could just give us an update on that?
Well, it's going well, because what happened after establishing that, we then said, we met with the Minister of Health, Minister Dr. Zikalala. We then also engaged the management of MSC. We then started the process. They are giving us the list of people who were on the cruise, and we are following up on each of those people who were part of the cruise, so that we're able to ensure that all of them are tested.
And then at the time when, one of the cruise liners about 2 weeks ago, March was about to set sail for the Portuguese islands, there was a bit of pushback. There was concern raised at that point, MEC, and we know that the thing about hindsight, it is perfect. It's 2020. But at this point, are you able to acknowledge that perhaps that was not the best course of action to take at the time?
It was not correct for them to have the cruise going, and that's why we said that even at that time. They tried to communicate with us and explain that they got a message while they were already on the way, but we said no, even that was not accepted, and it was not a good judgment.
So just looking at the situation right now, residents of KwaZulu Natal old age homes are being tested for COVID-19 after, we understand, an 81-year-old has tested positive. Are you able to confirm that for us, Mr. Premier? And where is that patient now? And are you able to give us any further details?
Yes, the patient was tested and she was found to be positive, and she's being attended to in the hospital, and we would not want to divulge the names of individuals, but they are around Tequini in Durban and in Pietermaritzburg, as well as Ladysmith.
And then, of course, patient zero, we understand that patient zero has recovered, Mr. Premier. How is he doing, and is he still in some sort of quarantine at this time?
No, he is no longer being quarantined. He recovered and he is back home, and we continue to monitor him through visits, and he comes to be checked, and he has done very well. He is, I would say, discharged because he has now proven to be negative. So
what does that mean? He's allowed to go out, do shopping, just go about a regular life like everybody else who is negative?
We have said let him be at home like all other people, because even for him, the process of lockdown is applicable. So he can go to do things, but he must take protective measures if he goes for shopping and other stuff. But he is now negative. That is proven.
And of course, the two people who have died so far, women both in their 40s, and one of them a teacher, Premier Zikalala. What sort of concern has that raised, and what are you doing in terms of testing people that may have come into contact with the teacher especially?
Firstly, it will be correct to send our message of condolences to the people who have lost their lives because of this pandemic. We are, of course, going to ensure that all people who have been in contact with those two people are tested. We are very worried about our workers, teachers, as well as nurses and doctors. We are concerned about their life, and we will ensure that they are supported throughout this process. And that's why all people who have been in contact with the two people who have passed on will be tested and will be also provided all necessary support that they deserve at this time.
Well, thank you so much for your time this morning. Premier of KwaZulu Natal, Sihle Zikalala, giving us an update on the China Mall lockdown in Durban Central and also how the province is dealing with COVID-19. KwaZulu Natal